An arrest has been made following a violent confrontation between rival motorcycle gangs at a gas station. The incident occurred as thousands of bikers gathered in Volusia County to celebrate Bike Week. But this isn't a new story. The conflict between America's two most infamous motorcycle clubs, the Hells Angels and the Outlaws, has roots that stretch back decades. June 24, 1974, a bomb exploded outside an Outlaws clubhouse on Chicago's South Side, killing 3 members. It wasn't random gang violence or isolated crime. It marked the beginning of a war that would last 50 years and claim more than 150 lives across 3 continents. The Outlaws Motorcycle Club was founded in 1935 in McCook, Illinois, making it the oldest outlaw motorcycle club in the world. Their original name was the McCook Outlaws Motorcycle Club. By 1950, they relocated to Chicago and dropped McCook from the name, becoming simply the Outlaws. Their black and white patch features a skull wearing a cap known as Charlie with crossed pistons behind it. The club's motto, God forgives, outlaws don't. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club was formed in Fontana, California on March 17, 1948, by World War II veterans. Their death head logo, a winged skull wearing a helmet, became a symbol of power and fear worldwide. Although younger than the Outlaws, the Hells Angels expanded faster, spreading chapters across the United States and eventually internationally. By the early 1970s, both groups controlled vast territories. The Outlaws dominated the Midwest and South, while the Hells Angels ruled California and were pushing eastward. A collision was inevitable, the conflict's origins traced to Florida. In 1967, the Hells Angels opened their first East Coast chapter in Lowell, Massachusetts, and began absorbing smaller clubs along the Atlantic coast. In 1974, a Florida motorcycle club called the Phantoms decided to join the Hells Angels. The Outlaws, who already claimed Florida as their territory, saw this as an act of aggression. To respond, the Outlaws absorbed several smaller clubs throughout the South and Midwest, creating a defensive network of chapters in Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. Their strategy was deliberate: surround and contain the Hells Angels' expansion. Both groups functioned like militaries rather than street gangs. Each chapter had a president, vice president, sergeant-at-arms, and treasurer. Every territorial move required approval from national leadership. It was organized warfare. By the mid-1970s, the FBI began monitoring both organizations, labeling them outlaw motorcycle gangs, OMGs. Federal investigators linked the groups to drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, prostitution, and contract killings. By 1975, each had turned into a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. The next major flashpoint came in January 1979, when the Hells Angels tried to establish a chapter in Charlotte, North Carolina, deep inside Outlaws territory. On January 4th, 3 Hells Angels prospects were distributing flyers in a Charlotte bar. Outlaws members from multiple chapters converged. What followed became known as the Charlotte Massacre. 2 Hells Angels were beaten nearly to death, and one disappeared entirely. His body was never found. Retaliation came swiftly. On March 18, 1979, a car bomb exploded outside an Outlaws clubhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. The bomb contained C4 military-grade explosives, suggesting someone with combat training built it. 2 Outlaws members were seriously injured. From that point on, both clubs began recruiting Vietnam War veterans who brought weapons expertise, explosives training, and battlefield experience. Federal raids began turning up assault rifles, hand grenades, and military-grade explosives. In the 1980s and 1990s, the conflict spread internationally. The Hells Angels established their first European chapter in London in 1969 and expanded through Germany, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. By 1980, they had over 30 European chapters. The Outlaws' major international expansion came later, in the early 1990s, when they founded chapters in France and Australia. In 1994, they entered Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, directly challenging Hells Angels territory. This decision ignited the Great Nordic Biker War, 1994 to 1997. The violence was unprecedented. On March 3, 1996, Hells Angels members in Denmark fired an anti-tank rocket at an Outlaws clubhouse, killing 2 people. In response, on October 18, 1996, the Outlaws detonated a car bomb outside the Hells Angels clubhouse in Copenhagen. The blast injured 16 people and damaged buildings blocks away. The Nordic Biker War left 11 dead and nearly 100 injured. More than 200 police raids were conducted in Denmark and Sweden. The violence became so severe that the Danish parliament passed emergency laws granting police expanded powers to investigate and arrest outlaw bikers. Even today, violence between these clubs continues around the world. From Chicago to Copenhagen, their rivalry has evolved into one of the longest and deadliest organized conflicts in modern history. What began as a dispute over territory in the 1970s has become a global war over power, pride, and control. Despite arrests, convictions, and decades of surveillance, both the Hells Angels and the Outlaws remain active, symbols of defiance and the enduring shadow of America's outlaw culture. Despite their long history of violence, both the Hells Angels and the Outlaws Motorcycle Club operate under strict internal codes of conduct. Former ATF agent Jay Dobbins, who infiltrated the Hells Angels for 2 years and later wrote No Angel, My Undercover Journey to the Inner Circle of the Hells Angels, revealed that all violent actions must be approved by chapter leadership. Random attacks are forbidden and family members are generally off limits, though that rule has occasionally been broken. The Outlaws follow a similar structure. A former member testified in federal court in 2001 that their organization even has a written constitution. Article 7 of that document outlines how conflicts with rival clubs must be handled. Violence is only permitted if it benefits the organization, not for personal reasons. Members who act independently face harsh discipline, including physical punishment or expulsion. Both clubs keep lawyers on retainer to defend members when they are arrested, often hiring experienced criminal attorneys. They operate semi-openly as registered motorcycle clubs, maintain business filings, and even trademark their logos. In one famous case, the Hells Angels sued Disney in 2007 for using their Death Head logo without permission in the movie Wild Hogs. Territory is central to both organizations. Each clubhouse represents control over a geographic area, typically a 200-mile radius. When a new clubhouse opens, it is announced publicly, with an event attended by members from multiple chapters. This serves as a warning: the territory is claimed. Membership follows a strict hierarchy based on patches. A full member wears the complete patch showing the club name, emblem, and city, Rocker. Prospects wear only a lower rocker reading Prospect, while associates are not permitted to wear any insignia at all. These patches identify rank instantly and symbolize loyalty and earned status. The U.S. government has prosecuted both clubs under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, a law originally created to dismantle the mafia. It allows prosecutors to hold an entire organization accountable for crimes committed by its members. In 1997, prosecutors in Illinois indicted 30 Outlaws members under RICO, alleging that the club operated as a criminal enterprise involved in murder, drug trafficking, and weapons smuggling. The case focused on the 1995 bombing of a Hells Angels associate's home that killed the man's mother-in-law. After a 4-month trial, 6 outlaws were convicted of racketeering. International President Harry Taco Bowman received a life sentence for ordering the attack. The Hells Angels faced a similar fate in 2002 when 16 members were indicted in South Carolina. Prosecutors described a criminal enterprise funded by membership dues and involved in drug distribution, prostitution, and violence. Financial records showed the club used collected dues to fund illegal operations. These RICO trials exposed how organized both groups had become. They held structured meetings, maintained membership records, collected dues, typically $100 to $200 monthly, and kept written minutes. Their corporate-style organization made them easier targets for federal prosecution, but also helped them rebuild quickly after arrests. When leaders are imprisoned, successors are elected. When clubhouses are seized, new ones open elsewhere. The decentralized structure ensures the club's survival. While violence has decreased in recent years, the rivalry continues in the 21st century. Law enforcement pressure has intensified, with the FBI, ATF, and local police monitoring both groups closely. In 2010, the Hells Angels tried to establish a chapter in Milwaukee, an area historically controlled by the Outlaws. The Outlaws responded by strengthening their presence and launching several support clubs in the region to block expansion. In 2012, the conflict spread in Canada. The Hells Angels had dominated organized crime there for decades, but the Outlaws began recruiting heavily in Ontario and Quebec. On August 9, 2013, a shootout outside a Toronto bar left 5 men wounded. Police recovered 12 weapons from the scene. Canadian authorities responded with Project Develop, a 2-year investigation that led to 47 arrests and disrupted operations. Though both clubs remain active, the survival of both clubs is tied to their business model. Their primary income still comes from drug trafficking, including methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana. Street-level distribution is often handled by associates, while full members oversee logistics and transport. Protection rackets also bring revenue. Businesses in areas with heavy club presence, such as strip clubs, bars, and tattoo parlors, often pay for security to avoid problems. Many of these businesses are owned by club members and used for money laundering. Merchandise is another major source of income. The Hells Angels and the Outlaws both sell branded shirts, patches, and other items at motorcycle rallies like Sturgis and Daytona Bike Week, generating millions of dollars annually. Both clubs carefully protect their trademarks and logos, creating an odd situation in which criminal organizations operate as legitimate business entities in court. Clubhouses and real estate are typically owned through shell companies, making them difficult for authorities to seize. This conflict, spanning more than 50 years, has claimed over 150 lives across multiple continents. What began as a territorial feud between rival biker clubs has evolved into a global organized crime network with military-grade weapons, international smuggling routes, and a corporate-style hierarchy. Despite constant surveillance, RICO prosecutions, and hundreds of arrests, both the Outlaws and the Hells Angels continue to operate and recruit worldwide. For their members, these patches are more than symbols. They represent identity, loyalty, and brotherhood worth dying for. The war between the world's most notorious motorcycle clubs isn't over. It has simply evolved. Right now, in clubhouses around the world, the next chapter of this war is already being planned.